research paper on the presidency of Donald Trump and his relation to evangelical Christians. It's a very timely topic, but I'm only focusing on about the 2016 election to 2020-ish, right at the end of his other term. When researching this, I looked at a lot of different authors, and one of the things that I saw that really came up most often was this topic of Christian nationalism. Now, you might think, oh, I know what that is, but there's many different definitions out there of what Christian nationalism is. So I want to go through a few different definitions and put all of them together in your mind to understand what this is, okay? So first, Katie Gaddini, in the article Defense of Racism and Christian Righteousness in the Time of Trump, defines Christian nationalism as the belief that the U.S. was, is, and should be a Christian nation. And then we've got a few others saying that Christian nationalism is based on theological doctrine. And one more said that Christian nationalism is the ideas that promotes Christians to prioritize the United States over other nations or nations' peoples. And it has this need to fuse the definition of being American and definition of being Christian as one and the same. So when I was researching this idea of evangelical Christians and the presidency of Donald Trump being connected somehow, that is what I ended up looking for. Is okay, so I see authors saying Christian nationalism is this connection. How on that broader level is Christian nationalism there? How do we meet that definition of all these different definitions of Christian nationalism? So the first thing I did was said, okay, let's look at the things that people who voted for this president are looking at. And that means I need to look at policy. So the policies that I found that align between the presidency of Donald Trump and evangelical Christians include abortion, LGBTQ plus rights, religious liberty, and immigration. Now, that's a lot of different things to talk about in one paper in this short video. So one thing I just want to focus on is immigration, because it has the most, how do I want to put it? It has the most blatant connection to the definition of Christian nationalism that we just went through with those three different authors. Now, the first thing I want to look at is immigration focuses on, in 2016, on Muslims, on Islam. And there's a very blurring of lines between terrorists and Muslims, which seems purposeful, because it creates this idea that there is not a difference between Muslims and terrorists, when there are people in the cabinet of President Trump saying that Islam is the enemy ideology of the United States and the United States is engaged in war with it, or calling it radical Islam. And then on top of that, we are going to see that the voting population often finds that they do not agree with the immigration policies, or they are feeling targeted in their own country, that they don't belong. And therefore, when they feel that way and they're hearing the words that I just said from the president, you see a blurring of lines, which leads to the definition of Christian nationalism that every author had come up with. Thank you.